Hi, I'm Kara with Riptide Resiliency and Empowerment Center.
And I'm Lizzie with Shielded Souls.
Our foundations have partnered together because we are both so passionate about the helping professions and the stress that comes with those occupations. Together, we've brought our programs and our educational tools, as well as seminars, guest speakers, and events to be able to help those that are in law enforcement, police, courts, corrections, local, state, federal, those who are dispatchers, those who are records clerks, those who are veterinarians, those who work in hospitals, doctors, nurses, etc. We're here to help you with a lot of holistic, robust programs. Part of that is our podcast. Every week on Wednesdays, we'll have a podcast release that'll bring you information that will provide some type of education and will definitely, hopefully, inspire you and give you the resources that you need to just be stronger than the current. Lizzie, tell us about Shielded Souls.
Okay, thank you guys for being here with our podcast. Shielded Souls is a nonprofit, and it started for veterans and first responders, and which now has pushed from veterans and first responders to just the helping profession, not just first responders, just the helping professionals. As a retired sergeant in law enforcement, I noticed that there was this dark space that I was in as far as being, just being, just like orbiting between two worlds. I'm no longer in law enforcement.
Yeah.
I'm going into the civilian world, but it's an awkward feeling. And I know that I'm not the only one feeling that way. So it was laid on my heart to just start something and start looking up if there's anyone else out there that's feeling this way. And I did a Google search and
Totally overwhelmed,
it was like
Yeah.
overwhelming. So that I started with the ideal of reaching out and letting first responders, whether you're on the job or retired, let them know that help is out there, that you're feeling a certain kind of way, but you're not the only one that's feeling that way. If that makes any sense. Like you're not the only one that's going through that. And it's okay if you're not okay.
Yeah.
It's okay if you're not okay. So that's why Shielded Souls, and I feel like the name Shielded Souls it's not just a name, it means something, because I realized being in law enforcement that we do shield ourselves and we shield our souls, we shield our families from our feelings, and we shield ourselves because we don't want the public to know what we're feeling.
Yeah.
So we put up that shield to let, to protect and hide at the same time.
Yeah.
We're protecting our family and our loved ones, but we're also hiding because we're protecting ourselves because we don't want to ruin that image of that we have control.
Yeah, right.
Right,
yeah.
that part. And our services are for families. We're the last, like when I think about us as first responders, we're the last ones to go for help. We're the first one to run to help someone, but we're
and the last ones to get help, for sure.
To reach out for help. So the services are like we're no different from anyone else in the world. We don't have a bubble around us or we're not protected. So that we're protected. So with that being said, it's Shielded Souls offer vetted resources. When I want to use that word strongly, vetted resources that we're just not sending them to a place or an organization or a business to say that they support first responders and veterans, and that's just like a punchline. I'd want to know how they do that.
Right.
So I vetted those, the companies or the specialties that they would need has been vetted, so they don't have to go through so much red tape. And families that need resources as far as, and everybody ever think that first responders would go through needing financial assistance for
But they do, they're
food
human.
or
Yes,
bills or
yes.
stuff like that. And
Yeah.
so the goal is to address those issues and because they're not going to go to like the public places. And I know that because I've been there as far as I know how being in that profession, I know how we think.
Sure.
And I know how the public looks at. No one would ever look us and think that we need like financial assistance or
that you're an abuse victim and
you're a victim
resources
of
for that.
something.
Yeah.
So we offer those services as far as we're not like mental health counselors by any stretch of the imagination,
right.
but you're the vein that get them to the places that they need.
That's awesome. So important to resource that out. And I think, the important thing that I hope people get it right along is like, we're just real nonprofits, real people that have been in the field that understand not only the field, but also just the mental struggles and the stigma, which we'll talk about today, but just the labels and the stigma that comes with mental help and getting the help that you need, especially when you're in the helping professions, emergency services. It's just a whole different ball game than the person that isn't in those occupations is a little bit more difficult. So together with Shielded Souls, Riptide enhances kind of the programs that exist. Again, we offer holistic care for anybody that is in an occupation that experiences trauma or social crisis situations on a repetitive basis, or just significantly has experienced that trauma. So one of our biggest resources that we have is a 24-hour call line that is not open yet, but stay tuned. And if you are, that call line is basically a crisis intervention call line. It's a debrief hotline. So, if you're going from one patient to the next patient and it's just a really hard mental situation, you just need to stop and debrief for a minute and have someone on the other end that would just listen to you. You can call us up. We'll have a doctor or a nurse, depending on what your occupation is, take your call and just listen to you and just debrief and just really help your mind move from that fight, flight, or freeze part of your brain to more processing that will just help you as you continue in your day. So that's what our call line is about. We also offer educational seminars and workshops. Of course, we have guest speakers through the podcast. We also offer things like life coaching, resources to equine therapists, neurological chiropractor care, just a lot of resources for you to help you to become stronger in the current. The reality is this, that's our slogan. You've probably seen that on our podcast, through our social media. What is stronger than the current? Well, you know what? You're already in the riptide. You're already in the current, right? If you're in the helping professions, you're always going to be in that just that overwhelming thing where
you're in the current.
Yeah. And so what we do through Riptide is we help you to become stronger in that current by giving you the resources that you need to build resiliency, and then also to just become empowered. And where Shielded Souls comes into that is really bringing the family side of that as well, and empowering your family. I think one thing you'll probably hear us say a lot, Lizzie says it a lot, is the +1, right?
Yes,
so, if you're listening to this and you're like, well, yeah, it's just me, whatever, but it's not just you, right? It's
you.
Somebody else in your family is affected, whether that's a parent, a sibling, your roommate. Somebody is affected by that. So we just want to help. I combined, which is super cool, through our organizations. We have over 80 years of combined experience. That's a lot of years, right? In criminal justice, and in law enforcement. We have people on our board who are doctors and nurses, victimology, crisis intervention, firefighters. We have all of these different occupations represented on our board and our advisory councils through our foundation, which is amazing. That means that we're in touch with what's currently going on in the field, but also we've experienced it. And I think that it's hard for someone to be like, oh yeah, cops have it hard. They say it like that, kind of sarcastically, because they don't really understand what it's like. Right. That, even though you don't bring the job home, you're always bringing the job home because it's in your head and it's stress and all of that. So we provide resources. Obviously, I've said that many times, but those are resources to counselors. I think the biggest thing is that we want to make sure that you can come to us confidentially, because we understand the paper trail, and we understand that even though you might be able to go to an EAP program, peer support within your organization, or to a jurisdiction appointed psychologist, you're still always worried, somebody going to know I went there, right? Yeah. So we are partnered with several therapists who would love to work with you on a donation basis, a cash basis, without the insurance trail. Of course, you're welcome to use your insurance, but if you prefer to not do that for confidentiality's sake, that's who we are.
It is available to you.
Absolutely. So get on our website. That's the best thing to do, at www.riptiderec.org, and check out our services. I think that's better than me stuttering over everything and boring you to death, but I did, since it's our first podcast, I want to give you kind of a blank of what we do. So our podcast, and I'll tell you what that's kind of going to be like in case you're scrolling and you got stuck on us and you're wondering if you're ever going to listen again. You'll want to listen again. Because our podcast is real. So if you think man, they clearly did not have top dollar marketing, you're probably right, because we just believe in being real. We're just real. So I feel like if anybody's like, why should I listen to the podcast? It should be for the shock factor, because I guarantee you, there's just going to be some reality that is going to do some good for you in your life, and hopefully, but also just the empowerment that you're going to gain from the reality
Yeah.
of the things that we're going to talk about and the resources that we're going to give you. So right away, if you're already digging that, just like organic, non-scripted.
We're going to hit the hard corners. We are
Yes.
definitely going to hit the hard corners.
Yes. If you are ready or into that, like, don't forget to like and subscribe below.
Yes.
Super important for us. So we
click.
think that. So we thought what we would do for our first podcast, besides giving you the hibbity dibbity, which we just did. I love that word, by the way, hibbity dibbity. I haven't said it for years.
Is that a
but
word?
I don't know. We made it up.
I don't know if that's a word.
Somebody right now is like, yeah, 1980. You're right.
don't
See,
know.
somebody knows.
Hibbity-dibbity.
It's probably bad.
Probably your
Oh boy. All right. So moving on. Beyond the introduction, what we wanted to do in light of Mental Health Awareness Month in the month of May is we thought we would talk just about mental health today and just have a conversation about kind of what it is and what we think about, and then talk about mental health specifically within the helping professions.
Yeah.
So that's what we're going to do here for a little bit of time today. So
And it does exist.
yeah, it's not the truth. Yeah. And some people talk about it very fluidly and talk about it very openly. Unfortunately, in the helping professions, the cultures are such that you're supposed to be strong. Like you said it earlier, right? Like everybody's running towards the fire or towards whatever.
And a medical personnel would not run away from someone that has a gunshot wound.
Right.
They don't think they're gonna run right into and try to stop the bleeding or whatever they need to do.
Yes,
They're
exactly.
They're not going to think about it even twice to do that, but that's what they do.
Yep, exactly. And then the association or the issue sometimes with that is that these are the people that have to maintain strength. Yeah. So I think even when I was a victim advocate for years for a police department as a volunteer, and in those moments, there was no way I was going to break down and cry. Right. Like I'm there to help the victims, not make it worse. Right. But that doesn't mean that you walk away unaffected, and so
you carry it with you.
Yeah,
You carry
of
it
course.
with you. I feel like when we go into our minds are like Velcro. It's gonna the things stick to us.
Yes.
They cling to us.
Yeah.
And it may not show at that moment. It may not because we have a way of packing it back, just filing it away.
Yeah, I always think, I don't know if anybody in your family ever told you this, but maybe it's because I had a loud mouth, surprise. But I always think of the childhood saying, you're rubber, I'm glue, whatever you say bounces off of me and sticks to you. Have you ever heard that? Seriously though. But I think about that, like if you
I
think
never
about,
said it, but I think I've heard it. I don't know.
like, you know
That's
how
not
true
something
that
else.
is though, like you think about it, when you hear the negative things over and over and over again, or you think that you have to be strong over and over and over again, and that like you are this,
Right.
eventually what happens?
You become
that, right? Which is the labeling that we'll talk
Yeah.
about. So I don't know, Liz, like, so as former law enforcement, what do you think of when you think of just mental health awareness or mental health?
When I think of mental health, I know and I feel like mental health has no boundaries. That's what I think. I feel like
everybody's affected by it.
Everybody's affected by it. And sometimes like we put that category on, but it's not. There's no mental health doesn't know like, oh, let me stay over in this in this neighborhood, or let me stay over in this culture. It's everywhere. Right. So I think of mental health. When I think of mental health, I think of it as not having boundaries, not having any. It doesn't discriminate, and it doesn't always show itself. It doesn't always. It's not what I think people perceive mental health to be, or what to look that if it had a look, what would it look like?
Yeah.
I feel like we as human beings, we want to see it. Mm-hmm. We want to say, oh, that's mental health.
And we want to like judge it. Like we have good mental health.
And then we have.
What is good mental health?
Yeah. Like when people say, oh, it's just a little lie. A lie is a lie.
Right.
So,
Shocker.
It's a little eccentric, a little crazy,
right.
but or whatever the case may be.
Yeah.
But the thing is that sometimes we want to put a face to it, or like you say, we want to.
I think we do. I think society does, but the face they're putting to it is not a police officer. It is not a firefighter. No. It is not a nurse. It is not a veterinarian. That's not the face that people attach that. You can get on anything today and Google that. Like what mental health, and what do you get? You get the person that's crying.
Their head down.
Yeah, their head's down. They look depressed as what.
Then they put a. You ever see the commercial where they put the like a paper plate with a smiley face up. And they put it up to their face, and they're like, oh, they're like advertising. But I can not for nothing. I think of let's think about Robin Williams, the actor. He was. He kept everyone in stitches. He was like. And that was really like the tears of a clown, because
Oh, so
he didn't
true.
want anyone to feel what he was
So true.
feeling.
Yep, so
So
true.
my thing is, a lot of times we do that with the mental health, like, and with anything behind it, because we, especially in these helping professions, you don't want people to know. So sometimes we go overboard, and I can speak for myself that you want to appear stronger than you were,
Oh,
and
yeah.
you go and you overemphasize that strength,
Yeah, you have to show your strength.
and you're like,
That's
you got to
right.
show it, and you got to walk around and
Yeah.
be a certain way, but inside you're like sawdust.
You're like
inside.
Robin Williams,
yeah, like
yeah.
you're.
Well, I think that's so good. So that's one of the reasons that we exist, right? That's where both of our hearts, I think, are and have been for
Yeah.
years. I didn't say this earlier, but the vision for this is 8 years in the making of being able to help those in the helping professions mentally, and to just help provide education and just real conversation around these topics. And what you just said is just it, that we feel that we have to show our mental strength in these professions. But what's weird though is in a lot of other occupations, it's not expected that you show your strength. So my example is, I actually had a student not too long ago. I'm in higher ed, and I had a student not too long ago who had missed work because of anxiety. And so we had kind of gotten in conversation, and she said, "Oh yeah, like we have days that we can take off for mental health days.
Okay.
That we can have that break." And I thought, isn't that interesting that in some professions it's okay to say, I need a day for my mental health,
Right.
and it's okay, and actually it's accepted.
Right.
And in other ones, you could take a mental health day. So let's say you work for a fire department, they have mental health personal days, that's fine. But if you actually wrote down, I took a day because I'm so dang depressed I can't handle life today, what's going to happen when you go back?
Oh yeah.
They're going to be making fun of you, potentially.
Potentially, yes, and potentially, like, more times than not, you're gonna get checked on a lot by your supervisor, your
Yep.
immediate supervisor.
Yep.
If he or she feels like it's something more, or they may have already spoken to their person that they report to.
And then is there a
So,
possibility that maybe you're not fit for duty?
Yeah, it can get to that. It can rise to that level, and hence was why a lot of people in these professions shield themselves from a lot of things that they're going through,
Yep.
because they don't want to have that.
Like the scrutiny.
The
of
scrutiny
the
of,
supervisors
like,
checking on them. Yeah.
I'm checking out for today. I'm taking a,
Yeah.
I'm taking. It sounds better to just say I'm just taking a personal day, or to call out sick, or just taking a personal day. Like, oh, I got a personal day. I'm gonna use before I lose it, kind of thing.
Yeah, so much better,
So
yeah.
it sounds better, and it's like it's more acceptable. But if just to say, and like you're right, Kara. Like I was speaking to a relative, she was telling me like it's like you can take personal days,
Yeah.
like a mental health day,
Sure,
or mental
yeah,
health break,
yeah,
or something
sure.
like that. But we would never say that in our profession, like in law enforcement. We never say that, like I'm gonna take this day because
Yeah.
now, okay.
Well, now it's because of the scrutiny, right? So what do
Yeah.
your peers know? What are they going to say? But like
Yeah.
you said, just the increased attention to you, and they have to, right?
Yeah, they
Because
have
are
to
you a
do it,
liability?
but-
And that's what people don't understand.
You-
This is why
they
mental
have to
health is
react that
so
way.
important in the helping professions. This
Yeah.
is why it is so important that anybody who does what we do in terms of providing resources
Right.
for the helping professions, God bless you, it is so important because of that hiding that has to take place. So if I had to take a mental health day or a personal day
Yeah.
because of my anxiety, and then I come back to work, my anxiety didn't take care of itself. Now I'm just stuffing. And now I had 6 horrific calls today. So now I'm stuffing that. So that leads us to the saddest thing ever. And that is the increased amount of suicides, depression, anxiety, job burnout, compassion fatigue, addiction
Yeah.
within the helping professions. There was a study that came out not too long ago. It might have been 2022. It might have been 2023. I can't remember exactly. It was by NAMI, that 1 out of every 4 police officers in the United States has suicide ideation. So that means like you roll up on a car accident. There's 4 cops standing there. 1 of those 4 cops has considered killing themselves in this last year. That is sad.
That's
Like
sad.
there's 3 of us here in this room right now.
But-
you know what I'm
yeah,
saying?
just
Like,
yeah.
that is crazy. And I think that that's what people don't understand, that this is no joke, that it doesn't go away. And when you are in a field, all of the helping professions that we help, including veterinarians, when you are in the fields that we are in, the mistake that you make because you have fatigue, because you're tired,
Right.
because you're not sleeping, because you're anxious, because you're depressed, because you're abused, whatever life situation is that you're bringing to the table that is affecting you mentally, potentially has fatal consequences.
Yes.
People don't think about that.
No.
You know, like, no, they're not going to be perfect. And if I'm already depressed and now I'm doing a surgery on someone,
Yeah.
and my brain's not 100% and I accidentally make one wrong move, that'd be a fatal consequence.
Yeah.
And in policing, that could be a fatal consequence to myself, to my partner, to someone in the public.
Yes.
That is why it is so, so, so important that we acknowledge and help those in the helping profession to be able to have, you know, good, we're going to call it the toolbox. They're going to have a lot of tools in their toolbox,
Right.
so that when they're feeling that way, they know, like, okay, I can call this number and just get some debriefing time with someone to help talk me down.
Yeah,
I
just
can do this. I can breathe in these ways in the next 2 seconds. That's going to help calm me down. You know, resource after resource to help us in those situations, because they don't just go away.
No, it never goes away, and a lot of times that's why we're here to the first responders and the members of the helping professions. Bring them aware, but we want to bring the public
Yes.
bring awareness to the public, and the public can be the spouses or the significant other or the children of these people in these professions.
Yeah.
And because it trickles out, it spans out to the point of someone like you. If a teacher has a student in class and that student's parent is one of these professions, and something took place, you know, on the job with their parent, that's going to trickle over, and it's going to
course.
affect. So we need to let people know that mental health it affects everyone. It affects the entire household. One person may be directly experiencing it, but everyone else is taking that on too.
And that reminds me of the fourth Friday of every month.
Oh, yeah.
We have a special podcast called Family Fridays.
Yes, we do.
And that'll be a week, the fourth Friday of every month, in which we'll be discussing those type of issues,
Yeah.
which is amazing because it does. But I think I want to back up just a little bit when
Okay.
you talked about awareness in the public. And, you know, if anything, I think that, like, that's one of the most valuable things that we do is, you know, help people to know what they don't know.
Oh,
Right?
yes.
And they don't know right now because they
don't
haven't
know.
been told, or they haven't been exposed. And
Right.
you know, that's the beautiful part of education and of understanding in a raw, unfiltered way, so that they too can be part of the solution and not part of the problem. It's
Right.
super easy to be part of the problem in this day and age.
Yes.
With the ways in which sometimes people view people within these professions, you know,
Yes.
and I guess my point is sometimes the public members don't even realize they're increasing the issue,
Right.
as opposed to helping with the solution, right? And it goes back to, like, you know, things that we have in society that are problems. You know, do we have a public responsibility to that or not? And I
Right.
think those are good things to consider if we want a better society and we want peace and we want love and we want all these great things. We all have to be part of the solution in some
Yeah.
capacity.
Yeah, we do.
And being part of that solution often is difficult because we don't know. We don't understand,
we don't
right?
know. We don't know,
So
we don't
that's,
know.
you know, that's a really important part, I think,
Yeah.
regarding mental health. And, you know, a couple weeks we'll talk about kind of that humanized aspect
Yeah.
of being in the helping professions and bringing it back to the human. And hopefully that will really help
Yeah,
people
because
to
they're-
understand kind of the reality, right? Of who
Yeah, these people
who
are
the
not
helping-
just what they. I mean,
No.
people that have a profession, we're not just what we do. We're people. We're humans.
Yes.
Like I said when I started earlier, that this mental health does not. There's no respect for boundaries. There's no respect for demographics. It's just okay.
Everybody's affected,
Everybody's
yeah.
affected. So
Yeah.
it doesn't matter.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm
It's amazing
still
how
who
people
I
don't
am. It's
recognize
just like
that.
my job was this.
Yep.
But my
Yep.
job title is this, but I'm
Yep.
still Liz, the
Yep.
the human being,
Yep.
you know?
And I'm
So-
looking forward to that podcast when we talk about the factors that affect us in the way that we perceive those in the helping professions. I think that's an amazing podcast where
Yeah.
we're going to be talking about
Oh, yeah.
how does it get to that point to where we don't view you as Liz, we view you as Officer so and so or Sergeant so and so. You know,
Yeah.
what transition takes place in humans' minds to get us
Yeah.
there. I think that's super fascinating. I was a little bit concerned this week when I was thinking about veterinarians,
Okay.
which is one of the populations that we really seek to help. A lot of people don't understand that. We'll have a whole podcast about that. So
Yeah.
hang tight.
She's
Right?
saying
Come back.
veterinarians. Yes,
That's
she
right.
did say
yeah,
veterinarians.
not vet.
She did
as
say
in
veterinarians.
Veterinarians, as in animal doctors and their techs. That's a whole nother lane of helping professionals that people don't necessarily acknowledge and think, and man, did they really experience a lot of trauma day in and day out. And in a lot of ways, they become like these counselors, right, of these families. But I got to tell you, I was a little bit disturbed when I read a research study by the National Institute of Health that they published in 2023 that 1 in 10 veterinarians in their study said that they turned to substance abuse or suicide ideology to deal with the extreme stress in their occupation. Now, that's like sad. Why in the world do we have to have so many people, 1 in 10, that are in that study? I mean, that obviously
that's
it's
in
not.
and
Yeah, exactly.
Not everybody that's feeling that way was in that study.
Exactly.
But it could be a little
It could
higher.
be way
or,
higher.
or,
Exactly. Yep.
so.
And I think that, that's just more of the reason is why we do what we do and why we're so passionate about the organizations that we have, is to just raise awareness of that. Because next time you go in to get your animal shots, like if you can understand what it's really like to be a veterinarian and you understand the trauma that they deal with and you understand what it is that they do, that's a whole nother ballgame. And that's that humanizing aspect of it, right? It's not someone that just is there to give you dog shots.
No, they wouldn't.
That person has dealt with a lot of stress that day, right? Yep. So, and of course we know that, 911 dispatchers are often overlooked for mental health, which is interesting.
They are very much of a first responder. They are very much they're getting that information, and I just want the public to understand, and I just want anyone that's in that profession has been a dispatcher for emergency services. You're the first one to receive that information.
That's
You're the
right.
first ones, more times than not, they're the first ones to receive that information. And just because they didn't see it, they're hearing it. So that affects them. That affects them because you don't have to be physically there to suffer post-traumatic stress.
Yep.
I'm not going to say the D word.
We don't say the D on this show.
I don't say the D word.
Post-traumatic stress,
It's post-traumatic stress.
We'll talk about that another day.
We're going to tell you why Lizzie don't like that D word. But people overlook the fact they're like, oh, they're dispatch. No, they're receiving this information
firsthand. So that's what a lot of people don't understand either. So if you've never done a ride along with law enforcement, which I encourage everybody to do a ride along, all right, and then you understand the reality, right? But here's the thing. People don't stop and think that cops often don't hear the victim side until they've already gone through a process because the dispatcher has already talked that through with them and talked that down a little bit. So by the time the police or the fire arrive, the person's still upset, right? But there's a difference between the first time I pick up that phone and I hear 911, what's your emergency? And I'm the victim versus now I've told you what's going on as the dispatcher, and now the police officer is showing up and I'm telling that police officer, there's a difference. And we know mentally there's that difference that's taking place every time you talk about it, right? So I think that it's so important what you just said, that the public need to realize, like when you get that call firsthand, like you are hearing the screaming, and sometimes you're hearing a person screaming in the background that by the time the cops arrive is not screaming anymore because they've died.
They've lost their life or something. Like you have to understand, and I just want the dispatchers, like anyone that's in that profession like that, to understand that we hear you. We understand that it's such a thing. It's a thing that you don't have to see. You don't have to see the trauma to be a part of that trauma. You don't have to be there. You're talking to that person that's frantic. And sometimes it takes a lot for somebody to even get to the point of calling 911. And when they're calling 911, don't just, and like you said, Kara, like the dispatchers are kind of like trying to talk them down just enough to gather their information, because they're probably screaming, send the police, send fire right here. And the dispatcher's okay, ma'am, sir. They're talking. I've never been a dispatcher. I've come to know a lot of them, but just to be up there and just to know that they're receiving this information firsthand, unless somebody if a law enforcement person rolls up on something, or they unview it, or what they call it, they saw it themselves, but still it's being dispatched. And they're still being affected by that. So they can have that post-traumatic experience. They can have that.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And so the cool thing is, obviously we tend to remember to recognize 911 or emergency service dispatchers as heroes, which is so good, and we appreciate them so much.
I love that.
But often we neglect the mental health side of it.
Yeah.
And
yeah.
I, in my time, have had so many friends who have been dispatchers. I've had a lot of students who went into dispatching because it was a great thing straight out of college for students to go into. And hopefully we'll hear from some of them on this show, on this podcast. But it's just an area that people don't realize is extremely traumatic. And often our dispatchers are younger populations, and a lot of police departments, or now there are a lot of combined communication centers, specifically, want that. Like they want younger, more malleable people who can be trained and
Right.
It's difficult.
But a lot of people, that's why, and not just the public, but a lot of the people that are not working with, and I'm not gonna hover over dispatch too long, but just to let them know that we understand, because the thing is that a lot of people, even within the agency or within the business, don't understand. They're like, oh, how can they ever be stressed out? All they do is sit and answer the phone. All they do is sit and talk. That is, kudos to them, because I know my lane, and that's not a lane that I could be in. That's not a lane that I know that I can be in.
Yeah, no, it's
So
like, I always say it's a special breed.
Yeah,
it's kind of like corrections officers. I always say that's a special breed because it takes a whole different personality set to be able to handle calls, the amount of detail that happens, and then often there's a call taker and then somebody, dispatching, someone communicating with the police officer. I mean, there's so many things that happen, and I look forward to when we do our segments on 911 dispatchers. I think that's going to be neat and super informative to be able to inform the public on that. But, the other kind of population that I think is often forgotten are corrections officers.
They are another thing, and you're going to hear me say a lot of things, because let me tell you something. I'm more like, okay, I'm for those people that never heard of us because we just started our podcast.
But
I'm military. I served in the U.S. Army. I started my career with law enforcement. I did 2 years, like 2 years and some change in the corrections facility. Like I was a correctional officer. Then I went on to what they call you work the streets. You become on the DLE side, Department of Law Enforcement side.
And then you arrested me, and that's how we met. Just joking.
She's a liar.
Just joking. Just joking.
I would have Baker acted. But no, they people overlook that, because what we did, like on the street, okay, I can arrest someone if that person was like all over the place. I arrest them, and I take them, they get booked in. I'm over them. I've done my paper.
You move on.
But now that same person is now the responsibility of corrections, and they just can't just get rid of them. So they have to deal with that too, and that's a lot of stress.
Well, and the mental abuse, the verbal abuse that comes to correction officers from inmates. I mean, although you're trained to tune out, but the reality is, I'm rubber, you're glue. Whatever you say bounces off of me and sticks to you, right? And there's truth to that like it's like being in an abusive relationship, even if you're like whatever and you're tuned out of it, you can still only take so much. Like eventually, it gets harder some days to shake. And if you're already having a hard time at home, or you're anxious or depressed or just having a bad day, nobody wants to hear that they're a horrible,
they don't hear anything
when they're already down, right? It's hard to disassociate. So I guess it's shocking, but it's probably no surprise that when we look at one of the most recent studies done regarding corrections officers by the National Institute of Health in 2022, they were reporting that about the suicide rate amongst correctional workers in the United States is about 7 times higher than the general population. That is...
Now that I didn't know.
Yeah.
I didn't know that part.
Yeah. Because it's such a forgotten population. They need help too.
Yeah. That I understand, like they need help, but I didn't know the suicide rate was really high. Like
It's high. Yeah. Yep. Unbelievable. Again, often, it takes a special person to be in corrections.
Yeah, it
does.
It
it's
does.
just
Not
like a dispatcher.
Not everyone can do that. Not everyone can. But this correction officer, they have that gift to. They can calm a situation, because inside of
with
the
their mouth,
facility,
that's all they have.
all they have is their mouth.
They don't have their guns.
And they have that ability. A lot of them, they have that ability to just diffuse the situation, if you will.
It's unbelievable.
But they take that on. It's filed away. Like
of course.
You told me many times that when I was telling you how I was feeling after I retired, and I was like, oh, why am I feeling this way? Because I'm not doing. I'm just sitting in my backyard, enjoying the water and whatever, and all of a sudden I'm feeling a certain kind of way, and you said because And I said, no, nothing. Nothing happened that would trigger me. And you said, no, because you filed all these things away. And now that you're retired, these things are coming, all
Yeah,
these
'cause
files
they're
that you
unresolved,
placed.
yeah.
I never dealt with them. Because I had to suck it up and move on because I had other calls to go to or other cases
Yeah.
to solve or whatever the case may be, whatever
Yeah.
position I was working. I couldn't dwell on that,
Yeah.
you know?
I think that's so
Yeah.
many people listening to this podcast. Like, I think that's it right there. Like, everybody thinks that they're fine until they're
They're not.
either faced with something that's super traumatic that really triggers them into that acknowledgement, or they get out of the occupation, or they retire from the occupation. And, you know, one of our populations that we really specialize in providing resources and education and workshops to are those that have retired from the helping professions. That is also a forgotten population.
Yeah.
Right? It's like, I remember my husband telling me that, you know, here he did 30 years in law enforcement and goes in on his last day and like basically walks out with a box. Like, here's your whole life. You know what I mean? Like, what? And I think,
Basically.
you know, even my time in higher ed, leaving a university and walking away, like, wow, like that was my office and we just put it into like 6 tubs, you know, like what just happened?
Yeah.
And, you know, when you come out of that and you have to redefine your life and figure out what normal is,
What
which we'll talk
normal
about that
is.
another day, but like, what is normal? Because the normal that I know is being a cop.
Yeah.
Well, guess what? Today, there's no uniform to put on. There's no badge. There's no,
There's no
hello,
nothing.
Sarge, or, you know, that goes away. And so everybody thinks retirement is going to be great, which it is, right?
Yeah, I mean, I enjoyed my
Until-
retirement. I enjoyed being. I thank God. God allowed me to get to that point where I can retire,
Yep,
and I'm
yep.
retired. But driving home on that last day, I'm in my personal car now. I'm in my
Yeah.
car. I have a badge that says retired sergeant on
Yeah,
it,
your
and
badge
I
is
have
no
an
more.
ID that says retired sergeant. But I'm nowhere retired in my. I'm driving home. I'm like,
What is happening? Yeah.
I'm orbiting. I don't even think I'm orbiting yet.
Ooh, yeah.
I don't even know what I'm doing because I'm just like, did it hit me yet? Like, I'm driving. I'm
And there's no radio in your car
There's no
in
and
terms
it's
of like anything traffic to listen to.
nothing.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
the same stuff is going on around me
Yeah.
that it would go on around me if I was still in law enforcement, had not retired. It's still the same. The public is still the public. Life is life, and as the kids say, life is life.
yeah.
But I'm like, wow, I'm
So different. Your identity changes. You have
Yeah,
to
it
find someone that
does.
you haven't been for 30 years, you know?
Like,
That's hard.
I mean, I haven't. Yeah,
It's always a work in progress, right? And I
I'm
think,
still not there. It's only been a year.
yeah, of course.
And I'm still trying to get my footing, if you will,
Yep.
of how I'm supposed to land.
Yeah.
And thank God I was led into, because doing a nonprofit was never my thing. I was like, oh, I'm retired. I'm just gonna decorate, hang pictures on the wall. I'm just gonna decorate and not be around people.
Yeah. And
But God
like-
had other plans for me.
That's
and
right.
for me
So there you
now.
are.
Yeah. So, but yeah, this
Yeah.
it really exists. And for those who have retired or about to retire, there's gonna be a segment on strictly
several,
for,
and
like,
a
this comment.
workshop coming up. Hopefully in June, we'll have that posted on our website.
Yeah.
For retirees,
Yeah.
I feel
we need an alumni.
that to me is right. That's a whole nother acknowledgement too of a population of people that the public isn't aware of, right?
Yeah.
So they don't understand that, like, you know, 2 years after you retire from like the helping professions and law enforcement in particular, suicide rates jump, addiction jumps, divorce rates jump. You know, all these things start jumping because you are taking someone and stripping basically the identity that they've held for so many years. And it's like taking a prisoner. I'm a criminologist. This is like taking a prisoner and they're free. And you take someone who's been in a prison, not a jail,
a
a prison for 30 years, and you say, voila, there you go. It's like Shawshank Redemption. You've seen that movie?
Yeah.
Remember that movie,
Yeah.
right?
They know how to-
And
they
you
know
remember the
what- they
suicide in the
knew that
movie?
the-
Why? Because you can't let people go that have been socialized and institutionalized into something, to
And
a
that's it.
subculture of norms, values, and beliefs that somehow influence identity and expect people to know who they are and how to behave. And that to me is the saddest part, is that we take people who have literally put their lives on the line every day put their families on the line, even like, and I'm not just talking law enforcement, I'm
Right,
talking
no.
fire, dispatchers, people, anybody
Yeah.
have been in these high stress occupations
Yeah.
for so many years, and we don't have the same type of support or things around them when they walk into their life, right? So that isn't to say that there aren't great resources out there, because there are fantastic resources out there for them, which is great. There are resources to help people who are retirees and stuff, but I think we bring a super nice, how do I say that? A super nice package is what I want to say to those who are retired, and that
Yeah.
we have you and we have others
Yeah.
that are part of our organization who have been in the helping professions and who are retired
Yeah.
and who have had to learn to walk on that other side.
Yeah, and
I
it's
think
not-
that's
it's not an
amazing.
easy walk. I've been on.
It is not.
I'm gonna tell you, I had to. I got to be honest. I got to be very transparent right this moment and very vulnerable right this moment, because I know when I was still working, I would say, and this was me before I was walking with Christ, before I was retired, because I didn't know what I didn't know.
Yeah.
I would say, oh, if they would just have a life outside of work, they don't have a life. That's why they can't cope with it. No, I have a life outside of work. I had a life outside of law enforcement. I have a very strong family. I have a very, my other thing was home staging and interior decorating, and that was my thing. But my identity that I didn't know, because nobody could tell me. I'm like, I used to always say, this is not my identity. This is just what I do for a living.
Yeah.
It doesn't identify me. But it did.
It did.
It identified me.
You become the badge.
And even more so, I think I was driving from somewhere, and I was telling you, I was like, I felt like I was orbiting between spaces. I was on the phone with you, and I told you, and you're like, it's no different than being paroled from a
Exactly. There's no difference.
institutionalized- like,
Because
I
you're
was-
still institutionalized into
Yeah.
norms, values, and beliefs that contradict the larger society. So when you come out of that subculture, shared norms, values, and beliefs in policing, and you come out into society that has norms, values, and beliefs that are not the same as the subculture, you have to adapt. I mean, this goes way back. I'm not going to totally geek out on you guys, but I usually will geek out on you a
Yeah,
little bit.
no, she geeks
This
out.
goes all the way back to early studies of like Durkheim, going back, looking at suicide rates in Europe and why people were killing themselves at unprecedented rates, and it was because of industrialization that men in society didn't know how to handle society becoming industrialized. And that led to norms changing. And when norms change in society, people don't know what the rules are. And when people don't know what the rules are, they experience what's called anomie. That's what Durkheim talked about. And anomie is a state of normlessness. I don't know how to behave. What does that do? That causes anxiety. That causes depression. That causes, I have no idea what to do. And so then people start making their own way because they're trying to figure out, what are the rules? Where are the boundaries? How should I behave? Well, unfortunately, back in Europe during this time, males ended, it was primarily white Protestant males, ironically, and this isn't a lecture, so I won't go into it, but they were killing themselves at unprecedented rates, and it boiled down to this experience of anomie because of normlessness. I will argue that today it's the same thing. We take someone out of the helping professions, high stress situations, high stress occupations with strong identity, which we'll talk about identity another day, with very strong identity behind the badge, under the uniform, around the stethoscope, whatever it is.
Right.
We take you out and then we put you over here. And over here has existed differently than you thought. So you come out, you get over here, and you're like, I don't know how to behave. Wait a minute, what do I do? I'm retired. Do I sleep in? Do I get up? Do I still go to the gym? Wait, do I call my friends who are at work? Do I think of all the things that went through your head, right?
Oh, yeah.
And
Still
it keeps
does.
going. Yeah, girl.
Still does.
Yeah.
I don't call people
yeah,
because I
girl.
don't want to bother them. I
Yeah,
wanna,
exactly. And so wait, who am I? Yeah. Nobody cares what Lizzie's doing today, but they always used to check on me. But wait a minute. Well, I mean, see, like the cycle starts, and then pretty soon you're experiencing like, I don't know how to behave.
Yeah.
And
What's
what
my
does that-
worth now?
And what does that do?
Yeah,
It taps into your worth,
yeah,
and then it
what's my
taps
worth now?
into
Yeah.
your mental states, right? Your depression, your anxiety, whatever. To be continued on another podcast, right?
Oh, yeah.
So just interesting how it all works and how it comes together.
Yeah.
So we're going to continue our conversations about mental health. Obviously, every Wednesday, we're going to have guest speakers. We're going to have great topics. We hope that you're digging, you're picking up what we're throwing down. Don't forget to
Yes,
like
yes.
and subscribe. Follow us on our social media, TikTok, Instagram, Facebook, at Stronger Than the Current. Check us out, like us, share us. We are starting brand new in that
Brand
social media realm. And so we appreciate anything that you do to just help us raise awareness about the important topics that we're going to discuss. And we hope that we are providing the resources that you need if you're in the helping professions, that you need if you know someone that is in the helping professions. We're just here to help. Again, our organizations, the Riptide Resiliency and Empowerment Center and the Shielded Souls Foundation, are both 501(c)(3)s, and we've joined to provide holistic resources, education, and referrals for those in the helping professions or those retired from the helping profession. Until next time.
Until next time.
Take care of yourself.
Peace.
Stick resources, education, and referrals for those in the helping professions or those retired from the helping profession. Until next time.
Until next time.
Take care of yourself.
Peace.